Hey there everyone, happy Friday. I am King 5 meteorologist Adam Claybon. Here we go into the weekend and it's expected to be hot. We are in first alert mode too because of that heat, and it's because summer is going to throw pretty much everything it has at us. We're talking about high heat. We're talking about the elevated fire risk that we're going to see over the next few days. And on top of that too, maybe some wildfire smoke haze beginning to find its way back across our skies. So we're going to discuss all of that. And first we are going to talk about the heat, because we do see the potential for record temperatures here over the next few days. Tomorrow's forecast is at 90. The record is at 91 from back in the year of 1988. We also have 90 in the forecast for Sunday. The record's at 88, so a little bit of a better chance of maybe hitting, if not exceeding, that mark then. And then you can see the heat eases a little bit, but we head back down to 87 degrees, still a pretty hot day. The record is at 91 back in 2016. And each one of those days are first alert days for us. And even once we continue on into next week, we're still talking about some pretty warm temperatures. And today, too, was a really hot day, as we saw a lot of mid to upper 80s, even some low 90s. Shelton 93, 90 in Olympia, a little cooler up around Bellingham at 83, 80 degrees in Port Angeles, and then 85 both out towards the coast for Quileute and in Hoquiam. Forecast here as we head throughout the night and into Monday is calling for us to continue to deal with the heat. Now, the warm overnights are going to be uncomfortable. Now, of course, not as hot as the afternoon highs, but you don't get that relief during the overnight like sometimes you would like to see here during some of those overnight hours. And then we get into the afternoons and we deal with a lot of the heat. The possible record highs, we're going to continue to watch for those here over the next few days. And that elevated fire risk too. We do have red flag warnings out because of that here across western Washington. We'll discuss that coming up here in just a second. Let's talk about your 7-day forecast today. You can see the red bars are with us through Monday. We cool down just slightly heading into Tuesday, back down to 86 degrees, plenty of sunshine, and you can see a gradual cooling on into next Thursday as we'll keep highs in the 80s, but back into the low 80s at least at that point. And then by next Friday, finally finding our way back into the 70s for some of those afternoon numbers. Here's the push, and I wanted to show you this because it kind of shows you that we are seeing that offshore push. No marine layer anywhere in sight. That would typically be a cooler and a little more of a comfortable air mass. It's well away from the coast. We got that offshore push head working right now, and that's what's helping to warm things up all the way out there towards the coast, as well as up this way around Bellingham, where you can see plenty of sunshine reflecting off of the bay. Seattle, we got the clear skies. We're at 88 degrees even at this hour, getting closer to 7 p.m. North winds coming in at about 12 miles per hour. We're going to drop down through the 80s, through the 70s, and find our way back into the 60s for early tomorrow morning, and then start to warm up again as we head into tomorrow afternoon. Wanted to show you the winds. You can see most of those coming either from the north or maybe more so the east. Now we have a little bit of a northwesterly component up around areas such as northwest interior and heading up around parts of the south coast. That will be helping us to cool down a little more easily and quickly as we head into the night. You'll notice that those immediate coastline areas are not under any sort of heat alert. But we have some of the areas just outside of the coastal areas actually dealing with some of those alerts here as we head on into the next few days. But especially with that wind coming out of the east through the Cascades and up and over the mountains, that's where we are definitely dealing with a bit more of that heat, and where we are going to see a lot more of those excessive heat warnings because of the downsloping wind, which is a warming wind. And why things have really warmed up as much as they have here from at this point last night, we're up by about 5 to 10 to 12 degrees across a lot of our locations. That offshore wind definitely doing a number and still keeping a lot of numbers in the 80s or maybe even the 90s as we head on into the first part of our Friday night. Radar, well, obviously with high pressure taking over, that's going to keep things quiet and all the sunshine heating things up. Here's a look though at those alerts. You can see for the orange shaded areas, that's where we have those heat advisories that are in effect, and that will include highs that will reach the mid 80s to possibly up to the mid 90s, and more lows in the low 60s. You can see areas around the south coast not under that heat advisory. We get a little more of a break during the overnight hours. Even though it may get hot during the afternoon, we'll get the break during the evening and the overnight. We'll cool down, and it looks like we'll cool down a bit earlier too than the rest of us who are farther to the east. And then you can see that more hot pink color, if you want to call it that, or that fuchsia color that is showing up across more of the Cascade foothills, and now includes, we've seen this upgraded for areas of King County and Pierce counties. That's where we have the extreme heat warning, and that has not been issued so far here throughout the summer months, especially for the areas around the immediate areas of Puget Sound. And that's where we could see some of those highs maybe getting up into the mid to upper 90s, maybe even seeing some spots making a run at the 100-degree mark. Going to be shy probably for many of us, but if you are into those foothill communities, keep an eye out because we talked about the downsloping wind. That's going to be the wind that helps us to really heat up and will cause not only just the hot daytime highs, but again, things not really cooling down a whole lot during the overnights either. And on top of that too, since we do have a pretty warm and descending wind, which is a hotter wind, but it's also a drying wind too, you'll have those red flag warnings out like we see across more of the western slopes of the Cascades as well as the eastern slopes of the Olympic Mountains. And for elevations above 1,500 feet, keep an eye out for some higher dangers and risks of fire to start to spark and really spread rapidly because of the conditions that we're expecting, the hot, the unstable, the kind of breezy conditions, as well as the very low humidity, which will help that dry vegetation that's already out there to really spark up if it does, and then to spread rapidly with any sort of fires that may find their way across those regions. So looking at what we're expecting as we head on into the next couple of days, tonight we drop those temperatures down into the low to mid 60s. A little cooler than what we're expecting over the next couple of nights because this might be one of the cooler nights we see here for the next few. Then we head on into tomorrow afternoon. We get those highs back into the 90s. Now this is model data, so you might see some numbers a bit higher than what some of our forecasts are. Either way, we're still thinking that it is going to be in the 90s for many spots. Then we cool back down into more the mid 60s heading on into early Sunday morning. Outside of Puget Sound and more so outside of those larger city areas, you might see more the 50s because we're not going to hold on to that heat as much as what we are going to do there across some of the larger cities. But once we start to warm back up again, we're back more around the 80 to 90 degree mark for many spots here around Puget Sound. Now off towards the west, you'll notice Quileute. We're starting to see that number cool back down into the low 70s. We'll start to see some relief out there. South Coast too, we'll see a little bit of that relief as well. And then continuing on into Monday, still a pretty hot day, but that cooler air mass is trying to work its way off towards the east to help us out, to at least give us a little bit of relief heading on into Monday, more so though heading into Tuesday. And wanted to point this out right here, you can see sky's actually not featuring too much of that smoke haze right now, but if you look well off towards the east, this is going to be over towards Idaho and into Montana, you can see a little wildfire smoke right there. Also another fire that's farther south getting closer to Boise. There's going to be some smoke that will travel and make its way closer to us as we head on into the next couple of days. So looking at that here on models, you can see that that lighter blue shading, that's some of the upper level smoke haze that's going to try to find its way eastward. We'll see a bit more of that haze in the upper parts of the atmosphere, which really won't have much of a impact on our air quality, but you can see the thicker and denser smoke that's across the eastern side of the state definitely playing a bit more of a role over there. It will continue to find its way off to the west as we go deeper and deeper into Saturday night, and then into Sunday. What might help us out here on this side of the mountains will be the fact that, of course, we have the mountains, so it has to do a little more work to get up and over the Cascades to eventually find its way over here. As far as the lower level smoke and the denser smoke, which would really create higher issues when it comes to air quality. Right now, we're not looking and seeing that that's going to be the case for us, but if you are a bit more sensitive to things of that nature, you definitely want to be careful and be mindful that things could maybe go a bit more down when it comes to our air quality into the latter part of our Sunday or maybe into Monday. But we're not looking at it to be a big issue, but we could see a bit more of that smoke haze across the sky. And as we continue on, looking at what's happening later on into next week, you can see big spinning area of low pressure across the Gulf of Alaska, going to stay off to the west for the time being, and we're still quiet here across this part of the country. Now, once we get on into Wednesday, we start to see that approaching the region just a bit more, and then we get on into Thursday, and then you can see that area of low pressure actually beginning to spin off and maybe work its way closer to Oregon and starting to set its way up closer to Friday and Saturday to possibly try to bring us some rainfall into the forecast. I don't know how confident I would say I am in that being the case, that we're going to actually see some rainfall out of it. But if we do get this setup right here, you can see how it's kind of south and west of us. That kind of setup sometimes can lead to possible thunderstorm activity. You get a little more instability in the atmosphere with that kind of setup, and that could be the case, something that we'll watch out for. And either way, the rain would be definitely beneficial. We don't want to see much in terms of thunderstorm activity, though, or at least lightning and thunder, because that could often maybe spark up another fire. But if we can get the rain back, it will be great. Either way, we're going to get a cool down with it as we head later on into next week, and that will be much needed and be a big relief because highs are going to go from the 90s and 80s here over the next few days. Wednesday back into the mid 80s, and then by the end of next work week and heading into the following weekend, finally back into the 70s, closer to the average of 77 degrees. All right, show us your forecast. Tonight, we'll get some areas to drop down into the 60s, and outside of maybe Puget Sound, probably expecting to see more of the 50s and just barely getting into the 50s at that. Once we head on to the day tomorrow, Blaine up to 86, going to be a hot day there. Bellingham, same number for you. Orcas Island up to 81 degrees. We'll see 88 there in Mount Vernon, 91 in Arlington. Foothill communities again going to get much hotter, so up around Darrington up to 97 degrees, 95 in Goldsbar. Those valleys really going to lock in some of the heat. 85 in Linwood. Will be a little cooler there across the islands of Camano and Whidbey as we get up to around the mid to upper 70s. 90s down this way around Seattle, Shoreline, Redmond, 92 in Enumclaw, up to 90 in Bremerton, 89 in Paulsbo. Hitting a high of 93 in Belfair, about 93 in Puyallup, 94 in Tenino, seeing highs staying in the 90s farther south and getting close to the 100 mark there around Longview. Lower 70s out towards the coast in Ocean Park and Long Beach. We'll see low to mid 70s are out towards the coast again, out this way around Nia Bay and Claylock and Tahola. Just farther inland, that downsloping wind off of the Olympics helps us up to 92 degrees there, so going to be a hot one in Forks. We'll be at 83 in Port Angeles, 94 in Quilcene, and 95 around Lake Cushman. Forecast here as we head over the next 7-day stretch, calling for plenty of heat to be around, and the hottest of those days here over the next 3. We'll get out of the 90s and find our way back down into the 80s as we head into the mid and latter part of next week, and eventually back into the 70s. But as I mentioned, summer definitely throwing everything that we typically see here as far as extremes here across the Pacific Northwest as far as some of the heat that's going to be around, the potential for new fires to develop, and some of those existing fires, maybe those to flare up and produce a bit more of that wildfire smoke haze across our area. So areas closer to Lake Cushman, again, even though we're not seeing much smoke coming off of it right now because of the heat and the drier conditions, we can see some of that begin to really start to ramp up again as we head over the next day or so. So be careful, make sure that you are taking extra precaution if you're going to be outside and doing anything that's going to be overly exertive at all, and make sure that you are drinking plenty of water and taking some breaks and wearing that loose fitted and as well as that light colored clothing to kind of ease some of the heat and make sure that you don't absorb as much of it as possible. All right, everyone, well, have a great weekend, a fantastic Friday, and we'll talk to you soon.